Have you ever heard of curing depression and facial scabs with one anal breath? Well, I have. I've been doing it. That's why I was sent to prison for practicing medicine without a license. Because my anal breath is a Schedule 1 narcotic, and I was giving it away without a prescription. Well, I'm an anal breather and I say fuck it. That's why you can now get my anal breath in a mason jar, high frequency healing vapor for $10.99. Arian!
And what you just witnessed was me anal breathing into a mason jar. That is, breathing in through my nose and exhaling out of the anus into a beautiful mason jar. You might be wondering, why would I do such a strange thing? And if you give me just 5 to 10 minutes of your time, I'll explain exactly why I'm anal breathing into a mason jar. I want to take you back to 2018, when I had just discovered that my breath could cure people of all sorts of ailments. I started curing people of their clitoral titus, which is basically like tonsillitis, swelling and inflammation, but it occurs on the clitoris. I was healing people of the HIV, and I was curing people of anal bifida, basically spinal bifida that occurs in the anus, and I also cured blurry vision. One day, a lady, and I won't mention any names, Julie schizophrenic fuckface Scabby McGee, reached out to me and she said, I've heard about your wonderful work and I was wondering if you could cure my crippling depression that I've had for a lifetime and the scabs that are appearing on my face. Scab face, I called her. I didn't know if this was a wise idea. I'd never ever healed anybody of mental disorders. I'd only done physical things, like I mentioned previously. But I thought, why not? I'm gonna take on this wonderful case and hopefully cure somebody of a crippling disease. So about 3 days later we met up and I tried everything. I did the Dragon Breath of Fire, I did the Him Naraji Ramarama breathing technique right onto her. I even tried mainstream breathing techniques like the Wim Hof method, and nothing was working. Her scabs were still all over her face, and she was still so depressed that she could hardly even speak. I then tried the Jumping Lotus breath release technique, which is basically where I do a star jump, and then I breathe, controlled breathing out through the mouth. And while I was doing that, a little bit of anal breath slipped out. I actually thought that I was doing a flatulent, and flatulence are absolutely putrid. I swore an oath to myself after my sister died of methane gas poisoning that I would never, ever, ever flatulate again. So when I did my anal breath, I didn't even know an anal breath was possible. I thought it was a flatulent. I was disgusted with myself. But my patient was cured in an instant. And I couldn't believe it. She went away, I went away, we went our separate ways. And what happened next was an internal monologue of conflict within my own mind. On one hand, I wanted to flatulate on everybody and cure them of whatever was troubling them. But on the other hand, I had not only sworn an oath, but I'd come into a covenant, a upon my sister's grave that I would never flatulate again. So I had this internal battle, this internal conflict of wondering what I should do next. I didn't have to worry long because I received a phone call about 3 weeks after I'd cured scab face of her depression, and it was her brother. Now, scab face identified as a victim. Her ego told her she was a victim, and it's how she got through life. She gained power through people's sympathy, and it also meant that she didn't have to do anything. So when I cured her of her depression in one anal breath, she had a mission to take me out because I'd robbed her of her victim status. So she told her brother that I needed to go. Now, she was Irish, which means her brother was Irish, and if you know anything about the Irish, they're famous for 2 things: alcoholism and chronic masturbation disorders. Her brother had both of these tendencies, and a third, anger management schizophrenic disorder. He came at me like a ton of bricks. He put me under citizen arrest and forced me to appear before a kangaroo court, a jury made up of his own peers, totally corrupt. They tried to charge me with practicing medicine without a license, and I said that's fucking ridiculous. I didn't prescribe any medication. There was no drugs, there was no medication that I gave to anybody. And the defense held up very well, and I thought we were going to win the case, and I thought I'd be walking out of there a free man. However, their attorney decided to say that I was then practicing witchcraft. I laughed in their faces and I said, there hasn't been a witchcraft charge in over 100 years. How on earth are you going to throw a charge like witchcraft at me when there's no statutory law in place that even can be a prosecution of such therein of? So the case was adjourned, and about 2 weeks later I appeared before them again, confident that my defence would hold strong, confident that I would walk out of there a free man. However, their attorney was very gifted. They were actually able to take a sample of Scab Face's face. Mind you, I'd cured her face of all the scabs. But they were able to take a sample of her face, and they were actually able to find remnants of my anal breath on her face. Again, we all thought it was a flatulent, and what the prosecutor said was we were able to do a forensic investigation of the flatulent traces on Scab Face's face, and we found not only high levels of methane, but high levels of other sinister and dangerous chemicals that actually put my flatulent into a category of a Schedule 1 narcotic. And then what happens next? The prosecutor says this, word for word, that I had forced the defendant to breathe in my flatulence without a prescription. And because my flatulent was a Schedule 1 narcotic, and because I never wrote her a prescription, I was practicing medicine without a license, and an ill practice of that without my prescription. So I was sentenced to full term. They threw the book at me. But I've done a lot of thinking, and I say, fuck the system. I'm an anal breather, and I'm proud. And I'm going to cure the world, heal humanity, one anal breath at a time. That is why I've been anal breathing into these mason jars, and that is why one of you lucky subscribers who comments in the comment thread below will receive a free mason jar of anal breath. It'll get rid of parasites, it'll get rid of bacteria, all sorts of things that may, harm the body and cause dis-ease, an easement of discomfort, dis-ease. I'll also not only be giving away these sacred jars of anal breath, and again, my anal breath has such a high vibration that it'll cure you of anything. I'll also be running a special sale today where if you buy 1 jar of anal breath, you'll receive a box of bungee nuggets completely free. So I wish you farewell, namaste and aloha. I ask you to keep breathing. Shalom aloha.
An anal breath is oxygen that has undergone an alchemical transformation, resonating at its highest frequency. An anal breath, when smoked, injected, or simply breathed in from the mason jar, will cure the body of any ailment. A bungee nugget is a dehydrated piece of Aboriginal dung with a complete amino acid count. Using anal breath and bungee nuggets together in a symbiotic dietary relationship will create a high resonance frequency for the human body that is consuming both of these medications. Shalom aloha.